pretty sure this is live. All it is.
Oh, are we live?
We are live. Welcome back to the Glowing Up Black podcast. We are reviewing the latest episode.
Married at First Sight, season 12.
Episode?
Probably 10.
It is 10. Yeah. I was going to say it in Spanish, but then I forgot what it was in Spanish. So it's 10. That's it.
Yes.
Yes, what she said.
It feels like we're Brianna and what's his name? Vinny right now. Because the basics levels of Spanish that they do.
It's been out the door.
It's really cute though. Because sometimes he threw it for a loop.
He'll say something in Spanish.
She's like,
what was that? Say it a little slower. Rewind.
Yeah.
So you want to start out with Vincent and Brianna?
Yeah, well, what does the episode start out with them? I feel like it starts out with other people. Sometimes it's easier to go, chronologically.
I think I wrote down Vincent and Brianna because they were first at the top of the list. Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Eric is our note taker, and I just.
So Vincent and Brianna sat down with
Viviana.
Dr. Viviana, yes.
Dr. Viviana.
And this was a good conversation. I was really proud of Vincent.
Yes. It was so funny. So the thing that I loved about Dr. Viviana was that she gave Vincent words for how he was feeling. And I feel like the whole thing was he was just wound so tightly that like he couldn't have fun at anything. And she finally
it's supposedly really silly.
Yeah, she was like, listen, Champagne Vinny, you're trying to be suave.
Mr. Suave, Mr. Romantic.
And it's not working out perfectly. And then you lose your cool. Yeah. And it's not necessary. Brianna doesn't need you to be perfect. She just needs you to be you. And
she said something really sweet. She was like, you being you will impress me. You don't need to go above and beyond. Although I'm sure she's not mad at the way he is going above and beyond.
Yeah.
But him being himself is also a part of that, and to appreciate that part of himself. So
yeah, totally. Vinny, once he had the words, it's like you just saw him lighter.
Let loose a little bit,
he felt lighter, he
even made fun of himself. He was talking about his tight, sweaty shirt during his dancing.
Which everybody knows, right? Like, why are you wearing this tight ass shirt?
The whole internet was talking about this.
But the fact that he knew, he said I had put on a few pounds and my shirt was a little bit tighter than it used to be. And I was sweating, and he felt out of his.
Talk about what it really is.
That's relatable, right? We can all relate to feeling out of sorts because you're uncomfortable with yourself, And Dr. Viviana was just like, you just need to let it go. And I think that Brianna did a really good job of echoing that sentiment. Like, you by yourself is great enough. Because I want somebody. The reason why I love this is because you accept me, right? And that was her thing. I feel like they're actually very similar in that neither of them had found anyone to accept them fully for who they are. And they came into this and immediately accepted each other. And so she needed to take the moment to really reassure him, I actually love the quirks. It's better if you're not perfect, if you're not, if the Champagne Vinny isn't this, I don't know, it's this character, I don't need that. You know?
And she said later on that I trust him, and I have not been able to trust anyone fully in other relationships. So it's a really big thing that I trust him. Yeah. And so they were really cute. They had a little, I think it was
the little date night with the
date night and the dares and whatnot.
It was a little sexy. It was really cute.
It was cute. So keep that going, Vinny. I think they are definitely on the path to success. As long as they get some continual help, because he's going to get back in his head again, which is fine. They'll work that out and develop that communication pattern that allows him to get out of his head quicker.
Yeah. But I think that I was a little bit worried last week because it just felt like a pattern was coming in with him. And I felt like it's going to be hard to shake this pattern. And he's going to cause her to walk on eggshells.
It did feel like a pattern.
Constantly be worried about setting him off. And that's not a good pattern. So the fact that, I think the intervention with Dr. Viviana was very timely for once, right? Because some of them were like, where are
the experts? We need y'all. So Vincent got the words he needed. He was willing to be vulnerable and to speak up and say, I did wrong. He apologized. Big things are gone. I think he's doing well.
Listen to your boy.
Chris is listening. He's like, call me when you need me on camera. I'm not doing anything else, but we'll get there. We'll get there,
guys. We didn't want to be there. We thought
we were hoping we'd be, over, let's go casual. Let's leave it alone. No more big drama. But as y'all can see by the title of this live review, there's a little bit of drama. It's not huge, but we'll get there. So I think we got Clara and Ryan, Haley and Jacob, Erica, Virginia.
Let's talk about Haley and Jacob.
Yes.
I think it's kind of quick. I mean, they were kind of peppered all up and through the episode. So people have made what's the word? Like comparison that Haley is really just the female version of Chris taking what's his name? Jacob on this roller coaster this entire season.
I think that's
what say you?
Extra. No way. She doesn't even touch the mess because I don't think that she does not respect Jacob. I think she just doesn't like him. That's the difference, the biggest difference I see.
I mean, she certainly doesn't respect the 80s.
She don't need to respect the 80s. She don't have to like everything he likes. That's not the issue. I think that she just does not like him. She does not.
You don't think she makes fun of him behind his back? She pretty much makes fun of him to his face. I don't know if the respect is there.
I think Jacob's friends make fun of him for the 80s. So I don't think that's a big deal. At the end of the day, she's like, you know what? I'm going to see this process through. But I think in her heart of hearts, she's given up. And that's what we see. It's that, let me try, but what am I really trying when I'm really not in it?
It's really hard because I think Jacob has a lot of words. I was going to say all the words, but he doesn't have all the words because he focuses
in on things that, are actually not.
Yeah. So he doesn't have, but he does communicate and expect answers from her.
Yes, that is one thing that he does.
She's really trying hard not to hurt his feelings. Mm-hmm. And because she really just is not attracted to him and also just doesn't really like how he moves, or maybe she just doesn't understand him. And it seems like everything he tries is like a turn off, like he's super serious. And she's like, I want to be lighter. I want to be silly. Like, but
I think the thing is he's not that serious. I think he's dry. Yes, what happens is that he's always bringing it back to this romantic thing because he's also got an instinct. You got to think he's in the room with her now. He's in the house. He's dealing with it on a daily basis. And so his instinct is screaming at him, this girl does not like you. And he's like, please just tell me that so we can be on the same page and make a decision about it. So that's why I think he's pushing her so much. And I found out, which I didn't realize, is that they're not sleeping in the same bed.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Maybe I forgot it, but...
Yeah, or if they just glossed over that.
Yeah.
But, well, they're at least in the same apartment, which is different than some other people, we can say.
Yeah.
So, my thing with Haley is, I don't think she's a bad person. I think she's really picky, inclined to run, very easily spooked. And I don't think she's trying as hard as she thinks she is. She's
not trying very hard. She's just upset about the conversations that she's being held to account and she doesn't appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think the experts probably saw something of that, like where she probably needs to be pushed in some areas. And they thought that Jacob would do that pushing.
Well, they brought it up.
But it actually is like creating more friction because he's pushing her a little bit too much. I wish that what would happen is that Jacob would take a moment to fully immerse Haley in all of him and all that he comes with and is fun, not just like half of it, like fully immerse her in like, I don't know, an 80s party with all of his friends, like playing, like wearing his full
That's the thing.
regatta.
I don't think that
No.
Because his friends are about that life either, though.
They're not. But if she saw him at full tilt, where he's like just fun because he's in his element and he feels comfortable. Sometimes when someone is like having a good time, they're more attractive to you.
Yeah, no, you can see you're engaged by the charisma, happiness. The energy,
yes.
You know, you get involved with that. I think what's different is that we see the most of what Jacob has to offer. That's my belief.
That's all he's got, folks.
And the most was that semi house party that they threw. I think that was him bringing her into his world, and he can do more of that. I think that was fun for them. Ultimately, they need to do more of that. But I don't know. I think that I do believe that there's a deep compatibility issue. I don't think that they would make it even if they were dating. And
their lifestyles are very different.
They're very different. It's not worth.
So do I think that they are like a long-lasting couple? I don't think so. But do I think they could be more than where they are? I feel like they could. I just don't know what's happening, but it gets harder and harder to watch.
It is. At this point, we are 24 days in. So let's remember that. It's not that far in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. And at the end of the day, they have hit some hiccups that have stymied their progress.
They need to go somewhere. I feel like they need to get out of the... I know. And that didn't end well.
No,
but
it didn't.
I think she can't have an out. So Haley can't have any other friends to go visit, like any of the other girls, wives, whatever. They need to go somewhere that both of them it'll be like a new experience. She likes international travel. She probably kind of looks down her nose at like American stateside travel. He's more into that. And I think if maybe they did something like that, like took a little road trip for the weekend.
Yes, but we know that's not going to happen right now. We do have to remember that they are in an experiment that requires them to be around production consistently.
Other people have gone places, though. I think it's like partially COVID. Oh, I didn't want to say it. The panoramic.
It's partially something.
I don't know. But anyway.
We'll see.
Well, yeah.
Let us know what you think about Haley and Jacob and whether they're going to last. Yeah. Next is either Clara, Ryan, or Eric and Virginia.
Let's do Clara and Ryan. That was kind of interesting.
This was
kind of weird.
I'm feeling a type of way because I believe that if this situation was reversed and it was a man talking to a woman about, you need to have sex with me because sex is something I really need in order to feel intimate with somebody. Mm-hmm. I think the experts and the internet and everybody would be like, he's pushing her too hard. He's doing too much. He needs to slow down. It hasn't been that long. And I think that Clara has some really, really odd beliefs about sex.
Well, she doesn't have any beliefs at all.
She's just like, it's just an activity, right? Like we walk down the street and hold hands. We have sex. They're the same thing.
Well, her thing was that Ryan has a lot tied into sex and that he really feels like there are lots of other things to be built, specifically trust, but a stronger bond. And then he'll be more interested. He'll feel like sex will mean something, like it mm-hmm. needs to mean something. Mm-hmm. And he has to get to the point where like the foundation of the relationship is built before he then engages in sex. Well, in
real world
sex, in intercourse,
right?
Because it seems like they're having
intimate
other
and sexual in other ways.
Yeah.
And that's not unreasonable because if they had been dating, and I understand the situation is different, but if they had been dating and they had gone on 3 dates, and the roles were reversed, we'd be like, yo, it's been 3 dates. Relax. You don't need to have sex yet.
3 dates over 3 weeks.
Over 3 weeks, right? They have been in the same space for 24 days. So I understand that. It's a lot more opportunity and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's still the same amount of time. And I think he's really trying to build a relationship. And this takes me back to something that happened last episode when she sort of just poo-pooed all on his conversation. He wanted to go serious. She wanted to stay light. She's like, yo, your TED Talk is boring me. And he was like, yo, this is something that's important to me. And if I cannot talk to you about this, we may not last. And I think that's honestly where he's at. He's like,
he was in his head.
I think he has been in his head. Can I fully open up to her about the things that are important to me? Because if I can't, it means I can't trust her.
I think he's disappointed in a little bit of her, like, kind of
flighty. It's not flightiness. It's sort of aloofness.
Like vastness. Is that like the word? I don't know. But like her inability to go deep. They talk about talking a lot. So I do think that they speak a lot, you know, that they have no issues with conversation. But I think her vapidness, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
I do think that I wonder if Ryan is turned off by Clara's vapidness, because it just seems like he's like, we we need to go deeper. And you just want to hit like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but like to check it off your list. And the thing about it was initially she's just kind of saying, it almost felt like a control thing, right? Where we felt like, is Ryan just trying to like control this situation? You know, is he, Dr. Viviana brought up, do you think that Ryan could be a virgin? You know, maybe he's being dishonest about, you know, his sexual experience, and that's causing him to kind of pull back.
Interesting, but I don't think that's
I thought it was an interesting concept. I wondered about it. I thought, maybe that's it. But then when Ryan comes back to the couch, because like he had let Clara and Viviana talk together, Dr. Viviana talk together.
Some real stuff came out.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, Clara makes it very clear that she has never had any kind of emotional connection to sex with another human being.
And I think that was something that's
so sad.
Taught or like learned over time. Like she learned that in a relationship.
In many relationships.
Either she put emotions into the act of sex and then realized and got hurt and burned by the situation and realized that she needs to divorce the two in order to protect herself. It was a defense mechanism on hers. And she has not sat with that thought long enough to realize that's what she did in her past. And so now she is justified the idea of divorcing them as that's just the way I am.
So the weird thing for me was that Clara, originally when she was sitting with Ryan said, I need to build this foundation first before I engage in the sex, right? And Clara's like, I need the sex
before I can get the butterflies and unicorns.
Feel like, yes, like the foundation and the butterflies and the unicorns and those feelings of love are there. Like the sex is a part of that. Without it, I can't get there. But then
she said they don't mean anything at all and never will.
Well, not that it never will, but that it never has.
Never has, right?
And that and this brings me to my point, which is that if we're gonna look at Paige and say and give and kind of break down Paige and say like, oh, she acts like she feels like she's unattractive to accept this kind of treatment, to the fact that Clara has divorced sex of feelings, right? At all, something's going on there too. And I think we really need to look at Clara like, who hurt you? Like who told you that sex, that you're to be used for sex and that's it? Like it just feels like, because she said a few times, right? Like, you know, from her early on days before they got married, and we were just like kind of learning who the people were, but also that people have men that she has dated have had sex with her and then asked her for a friend's number.
Right.
And so it seems like she feels like this is a thing I have to do to try to.
It's a thing I have to accept about sex, as you know.
Yeah, that men can just kind of use me and I just need to like kind of get over that. Like that sex.
I can establish my own needs on this plane, in this regard. And there was one thing she said as well that was interesting. I found out that in her previous relationship, it was like a 3-year relationship. At some point, they were not having sex.
Yeah, she said like 3 times
a year.
Yeah.
And so there is definitely some ties in all of this, right? You say sex doesn't mean anything, but then when you bring up this idea of not having sex with your old partner, it's something that saddens you.
Right, because I think she ties sex to her desirability. And I think that's why she's been willing. That's why she says like, it's nothing, like I have it very quickly, you know, in any relationship. And so I think that there's something that she feels like, I need you to think I'm desirable, and therefore I will have sex with you really quickly. So therefore you desire me. So even if you don't come back for me, Clara, as a person, you come back for the sex that I'm able to provide you. And so then when she was denied the sex in her last relationship, I think then she felt even worse about herself. And so I think with the Ryan situation, how she feels denied of sex, then she's starting to feel
undesired and unwanted. And she's like, what is it about me that's stopping you from wanting to do this? Because everybody else I've been with, except for that one guy, has wanted to have sex with me right away. And great to have you again, Lee Pepper. They say, I think they should all wait for the 8 weeks. It's been a few couples from the past seasons that did not sleep together till after the 8 weeks. We were just talking about that. We were talking about Karen and Miles from last season, and how the experts at that time were like, why don't you just take sex off the table? So it's interesting how
there's been many couples. If you look at it from the beginning of the whole show, like to now, there is a much stronger push to have couples sleep with each. It feels like a push. I'm not going to say like it's an absolute push, but certainly the experts do ask them a lot. Like, have you consummated the marriage? Have you did, you know? And I think for them, when like anytime I listen to Dr. Viviana or Dr. Cal, it seems like their thing is, you know, kind of embracing the intimacy will push you to stay together. And maybe there's something to that.
I think it's less stay together, and I think it's more start laying the glue down, like creating that connection.
Yes, because there was a point where like there were not a lot of marriages like lasting, you know, and now we kind of come back to like maybe more people say yes than no, it seems like, or at least it's half and half. But before it was like one couple would say. There were like a couple seasons that were like, dang, nobody stayed together. So maybe that's where that came from. But I do wonder, like, 8 weeks is not like that long of a time. And also the show has extended, right? Like the time, like I think originally it was like 4 weeks before decision day. Then it was 6 weeks. Now it's 8 weeks or something like that. And so, you know, it's like in the grand scheme of things, is 2 months really like, you know, a long time? It's not
that long a time. That's what I'm saying.
It's really not. I think especially for people where connection may be an issue, like whether like with Ryan, he's never been in love before. I think like then let's take it off the table. She's definitely
connecting the dots to that too. She's like, okay, if we never have sex, how are you ever going to love me? It's just really, there's some layers there that needs to be unraveled with Clara in terms of like
Clara, in
her
terms
expectations of it. Yeah, I think so. We have about 22 people watching. Want to say hi. Thank you for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment. We really appreciate our community.
It's good to have you here. All right, so
Eric in Virginia.
You don't want to do Chris and Paige?
Yes, okay, that's fine. I don't mind.
we sometimes we leave them for last.
That's true. Yeah, no, we don't need to leave them for last. Listen. Okay, so last episode, last time we talked about this, I was like, I'm done with Paige. And I'm slightly revising that.
Are we too hard on Paige, guys?
Well, okay. So I believe now, you know what? I can be done with wanting to control Paige's decisions. That's what I'm done with. I'm done feeling a type of way based on how she chooses to go about this process. And the reason why I'm at that stage now is because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not in the situation, but also I think she is really, really coming at this and came at this, like decided before it all started, I'm going to see this through to the end. It can be crazy. It can be nuts. It doesn't matter.
I mean, I don't think she thought it would be all that.
I know she didn't think it would be all that. But my point is that, and she's I think committed. This is because of, she's committed because of the way it has all happened, and because it's on TV and it's reality television and we're commenting about it. It's really easy to place the girlfriend-boyfriend expectation on what is a marriage. Yes. And she is like, this is a marriage. I got married in front of God and my family, and I'm going to be committed to those vows until I cannot. And I have to respect that, right? Like at the end of the day, we talk about marriage and it is a different beast. You have to be committed on a wholly different level.
But beyond that, especially Paige is a Christian woman and she leads with her Christianity. And I think sometimes it's really hard because it feels like she's leaning so hard on the Christianity that she's not sort of allowing her common sense and her free will to kick in. But the reality is that when you're a person of faith and you step into a covenant, right, with a partner, like she really believes that she was here for a purpose, right? And that Chris was placed into her life with a purpose. And so, yes, it's frustrating, right? Because he's so flagrant with his disrespect.
He does not value
right? Like I'm pointing at Eric, but like I'm talking to you, Chris. But he's so flagrant, right, with his disrespect that like it's so hard. You just want to shake her. But the reality is that marriage, real marriage, okay, is wrought with, I'm not going to say wrought, but if you want a long marriage, there are going to be hard times. Yeah. And there are going to be points where many people might encourage you to walk away, or where you yourself might think, I should walk away. It's too much. But the reality is, if you believe in the commitment and you believe in the relationship and you believe in the purpose of your covenant, right? Then, you know, if you really look at it, 3 weeks of crazy, you know, maybe for her, it's too hard to see it as a reason to walk away when she is thinking of a lifetime.
Right.
And so we just have to like, I'm just saying maybe we should look at it through Paige's lens, that she's thinking lifetime.
She's trying to give her, we need to give her the grace for her to give her in the situation and Chris the grace to get through this momentary time.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
for her to process it. Because we better come with the fire for Chris. You know, like we can't have more venom for Paige for taking it than for Chris doling it out.
Right.
Like that doesn't make sense.
One last thing about like what marriage is, and you know, a lot of people think that marriage is a contract, but you use the word covenant. When you're in a contract, if someone breaches their side of the contract, then you're allowed to null and void the contract. But a covenant is it's a commitment to the continuation of something on an ongoing basis. And that's why marriage should be more sacred and more long-standing, and you should be more committed to it. It's a different beast when you do not have that kind of spiritual background and understanding and support of your idea of marriage to really look at it in that vein. But that's, you know, I think that's the way that we look at it. And that's why I think I'm trying to give Paige the grace to go about the process in the way that she decides to. And she, you know, she used her,
now, Chris, we're coming for you though.
her firm understanding of where she wanted to be in order to try and hold him to the fire in this episode. You know,
yeah, I think she did in some ways. So let's talk about like the scenes, like with them. So basically,
very first scene,
Paige lets you know the cameras know that after their last sit down last week,
at
in
the
which they
lounge
said,
or bar, wherever they were,
in which they said they're going to reset and start over, right? That every time they hadn't spoken, she would reach out to him. He would send her the voicemail. He got nothing. So she requested the meeting with Dr. Viviana. And so Chris shows up because we know Chris won't show up for Paige, but he'll show up for the cameras. And
the only
for the
contract
experts.
He's worried about, the only thing he's committed to is making sure he makes it to the end of the week. So
I think he's committed to, like, if I'm on camera, I'm going to try to make myself look good. But it's like he gives 50%. He's like, I'm going to give you something that looks decent, but then I'm also gonna inflame with more crazy. Like I don't know. It's very strange.
I don't know how to describe or understand or analyze this dude. All I know is that he does not see Paige as even important or valuable or anything. It's like, I got what I needed from you. Yeah. I don't need to put in any more effort than is required of me by production. That is it. I'm not doing anything else. Yeah. So he showed up with Dr. Viviana, and he was basically trying to explain, oh, I'm depressed. He tries his victim card with everybody outside, even with with Paige. Yeah. I was depressed. I'm whatever. I'm this, that, and the other. And then Dr. Juliana, and I feel like she should have gotten in his butt the same way she got in Vincent's. I mean, she didn't get in his butt. Just be clear about what it is that you are doing and why it is lackluster. Why it is. Yeah,
she could have described to him what he was doing more clearly, because like basically Paige said, I would just like a phone call. I just want to talk on the phone. We said we were going to start over. I would like to speak regularly on the phone. Chris said, he pushed back on that. I mean, that's just like too much for me. Honestly, it feels like it's forced, but then offered to take her on dates. And Paige is like, I don't really want to go on dates. Like you can't even answer the phone for me.
I
like
picked up on it.
Just pick up the phone. What's the problem? And it's like, he couldn't or wouldn't do it.
Because he doesn't want to do anything for her, but he will do something for production. Me calling you on the phone is like, I care about you. I'm worried about you. I want to talk to you. We have a relationship. Me going on a date is the cameras will follow and production gets what they need out of this side of the deal. So he is no longer willing to put any effort into this relationship for her. It is all for production. Yeah. So later on, they're after the Viviana episode, they sit down and say, what are some things that we can do together? And they're like, Paige is writing out the days of the week. And he's like, I'm busy on this day. How about this day? I don't want to go to the movies. I don't want to play cards. How about we do saying no Bible to everything? Study?
Yes.
What are you
and
talking
this is my
about?
thing. This is the thing. This is what we're talking about. So it's like he says something that he thinks sounds good.
Right.
And he turns down everything that's fun that like Paige, like a 25-year-old would want to do something fun. Okay. I mean, not that Bible study isn't fun, but okay. She's talking about activities and he's like, nah, how about I bring you some food and we do Bible study.
Right.
And they agree to do that. She does the famous Paige smile because when he speaks her language, we know that Paige lights up. It is what it is.
Right.
And so he comes over with the food, right? And he asks her, so what do you have prepared? And she's like, oh, well, I was hoping that you would actually lead. And he's like, no, I was busy.
I was busy. I barely slept last night.
I've been really busy. So like, no, I would prefer you do it. I mean, he wouldn't even say grace. And she's like, you're always like, you never say grace. You always want me to do it.
Because for him, religion is just
it's like a toy.
It's not even a toy. It's like a nice jacket. I want to put it on just to look good, but I can take it off anytime I want. It's for him. It is literally just an ornament. That's all it is for him.
It seems to be that's how he uses it. So Lee said, I think toxic religion plays a major role. So I understand. I was raised in this kind of toxicity. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe you might have been talking about that with Ryan and Claire. But I think it kind of plays a role here, right?
Because he's using religion in a toxic way. Yeah. He's using it to up his reputation and to put his foot in the door with people that lean on that.
And a lot of times,
it's manipulative.
Men and women receive what's taught to men and women, in terms of religion are two different messages, right? And so, that's a big part, in terms of like some of that toxicity, depending upon, what specific kind of church or denomination that you're raised in. Some of them hold very sexist values, to this day. And Chris knows that, and you can tell kind of like where he comes from.
Yeah.
And it's sad. So eventually Paige concedes and she brings out the Bible and, they're talking about friendship and he reluctantly, she encourages him to read, the scripture. And then after all of this, he's like, oh, well, speaking about friendship, since we're, talking about that, I felt like I needed to tell you something. And he goes into this diatribe about 6 years ago, Mercedes. And as soon as he says the word Mercedes, Paige starts rolling her eyes. Now, if you know any women know.
Why are you bringing up anything from 6 years ago?
But even don't pump this woman's name in my house. Like, to be honest, like, she didn't want to hear that. Like, we're having a decent time.
Guess what? Chris is no longer looking at her as his wife, even though he'll use the language here and there. Mm-hmm. But we had an OTF this episode where he was saying that, you know, we can restart as friends. Like all he sees her as is a friend for the show. He's not even worried about actually being friendly with her.
So that is my frustration, right? Because
but what does he say?
Wait, now I lost my track of thought. Yeah. Okay, I didn't forget. Okay. Here we go. So Chris says, basically, I bought Mercedes, a brand new Mercedes.
A brand new one. Made sure to emphasize that point.
He takes
why not?
The knife
and
that he has that already
and
is
while
like
he's twisting, he's pouring some sugar and some salt and everything else into some salt. Listen.
The knives that are already still embedded, right, in Paige from every other interaction that she has with Chris, he pulls one out and then like re-stabs her. And it's just like,
it's mind-boggling.
We just had a decent night, right? Pleasant, nothing, whatever, like a little bit
we did something normal. We did Bible study. We could have left it at that and moved on, right?
And you take this opportunity to tell me your wife, the most you've ever bought me was a chicken dinner. And you gonna tell me at this chicken dinner that you bought, you're 6 weeks pregnant, maybe she's 8 weeks by now, you know. Baby mama, ex-fiance,
a brand new
that
car.
You bought her, not just a brand new, a brand new car, a brand new luxury car, and a brand new luxury car that matches her name.
That's some weird stuff, right?
That's you telling me that you are.
Exactly. You trying to get back with her. Like, now you putting the effort in to get back with your ex. Right? Like, please just wait for me. I got to get through 8 weeks, but I will be there.
All I got to say is let your apology be as loud as the disrespect. Like, I'm just like, at this point, Paige needs to accept nothing less. I know we just went on this whole thing about, you know, let's not like be down on Paige. And I'm not. But like at this point, he has to, like, the level of disrespect from Chris, it's just so purposeful. It's so intentional. And it doesn't even make sense. It's the only other thing I can think is
like
that
he wants him. He wants her to blow up.
He wants her to blow up and for her to walk away from it. Because our thing was that, you know, our concern is like, okay, they had this meeting with Dr. Viviana. He's kind of like resisting every kind of, you know,
he told Dr. Viviana, I'm not into it.
My heart's not 100% into it. I don't want to talk on the phone.
It's hard for me to do anything where my heart's not 100% into it.
Right. So why not walk away, Chris? You said you wanted a divorce. Why not just say it one more time? Right. Just say it again for final measure. I'm done today.
Right.
Let her off the hook, because clearly she's not going to let herself off the hook, because Paige has made a commitment. And to be clear, I don't think her commitment to God and this union has actually anything to do with Chris. I think it's a conversation Paige had with God, and that's just it. There's nothing that none of us are going to do to change that. And we can feel how we going to feel about it. But at the end of the day, like, he's got to let her off the hook. And it's just I hate to see it. Is it unfair? I don't know, but it's disgusting at this point.
Motown Investor says, I think he is down low and likes hurting women. He hurt Mercedes the most. And I think it's really important to realize that
whether he likes women.
You know, I don't think he even understands what it means to value a woman. I don't think he has an understanding. And I think this is because of who he hangs out with. And just the way his father acts, I think he gets it from his father.
Yeah.
You know, his father's a little leery.
You can deal with women and not like women. Like, there's plenty of people who do it, you know, and he does give off that energy.
The language he using is like really, really specific in terms of like why he bought Mercedes a vehicle. And he says, I'm going to have a king or queen soon, and they should have a chariot. Now, there's two things that I pick up out of that.
Am I not your queen? I'm your wife.
Mercedes isn't the queen. It's the kids. So the women around him aren't that valuable. They are tools for his pleasure or to help him gain life. And then the That's chariot piece.
Yeah.
I will put the women that I want to value in the way that I want to value them in these fancy vehicles.
Because it's a reflection on me. Exactly. This is more about me.
Exactly.
So I'm going to put Mercedes in a Mercedes. Because,
and I'm going to drop some chicken in front of you. Because how do I value you?
Exactly. Because when Mercedes out and about, I want her to know that if anyone tries to come to her, even if she doesn't want me, because remember in the episode where Mercedes, where they were all meeting, she was like, I'm not at that point with him yet. Like, we're not there yet. I'm not trying to get back with him. He set it up to where you're going to always have to say, every time you sit down in your new car, that this is what Chris did for me.
Right.
And so any man that you come across,
that's exactly it.
You're going to have to say,
it's territorial.
Well, did they buy me a brand new Mercedes? Right. No, they didn't. And so it's like he's definitely playing with Mercedes too. I don't know that. I think like, do you think Mercedes is hurt the most? I think she's certainly just as twisted in her head as Paige.
I think that if you look at how long he could potentially have been in a relationship with Mercedes, he's probably done her just as dirty.
Yeah.
You know, because they did have a relationship and then it ended. And it ended for a reason. So there probably is some more pain there. Who knows why she's no longer trying to be with him or why at this point it's even a possibility to get back together. It's frustrating. It is frustrating.
So did you see the look into next week's episode?
Yes. Well, it seemed like Paige was like finally laying into him, or at least asking the tough questions on camera and trying to get him to answer.
Because she seemed hurt. Well, she seemed annoyed. She seemed annoyed,
Yeah.
flabbergasted, hurt, which are probably all the things he wanted her to be. And I just hope from here she just says like, okay.
Yeah, stop playing the game.
Just you can have it.
It'd be like Brett and Olivia from last season.
We don't need to be friends.
Right. Like do some OTS, talk to the experts alone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be over here. 8 weeks up. We're gonna sign these papers and move on.
Yeah.
But I don't need to continue sitting down and being diminished and depleted and a doormat. The D words. I wish we don't want it for her. Hopefully she doesn't want it for herself. So
we're moving on.
But not least is Eric and Virginia. Yeah. And you know, they had two serious moments in the episode, I think. I think the first was with Dr. Viviana. Yeah. And then the second was later on when they had like this vulnerable moment, which I was like, you know, that's gonna serve them well in the future. So the first one was when they were talking to Dr. Viviana, and at first I thought they were going to bring up the issue of her having male friends or him not being around. But the big issue that came up in this conversation was that they have different ideas, different worldviews on a few different things. And at the end of the day, I think it does come down to like different political views. He mentioned social issues, things that are hard, and I don't know how to change them. So I basically don't want to talk about them.
So the background on that, right, is that Eric is a Southern conservative, right? And Virginia is not. And her thing is that she's raised around that. Lots of people in her family are also that way. Mm-hmm. But we know that she has said before that one of her sisters, or I don't know if she has one or more, but anyway, one of her sisters is gay. And, you know, I don't know if it's because of that or what have you, but she's more liberal in her politics and viewpoints and her belief system. Mm-hmm. And she has said before that it's really important that people, whoever she's with, accepts fully her sister and her beliefs, and, you know, because that's important to her, you know. And Eric's thing is like, listen, I hear you,
but that ain't got nothing to do with me. Those issues are hard.
I don't touch social issues. They're too difficult. And, but I am just the way I am. You're not going to change my views.
And the biggest thing was that,
this or that
you can feel how you feel. I'm going to feel how I feel. And I'm not going to change my viewpoints.
Yeah. He felt that they could work with it. He's like, it's not a barrier for me.
Right. He felt like they could just
don't ask me to
live separately about it, as if those things won't become integral in the way they live their lives, because he's very much, if you
have children, which they will,
exactly,
because that's part of how you raise your children.
He's very much like, I'm gonna do me. You can either fit in my vein or we're not gonna work.
Which is a common theme with Eric.
Yes, it very much is. And Dr. Viviana asked, like, what happens when you guys have kids? And I don't think that there was a sufficient answer in that.
Well, we know that at that point, like, Virginia was like, well, she's like 50-50 on kids anyway. Mm-hmm. And so, we don't really get a lot of resolution there, because it just seemed like for her, it was like a sore point. And I think that she realizes like that she doesn't actually sort of go into specifically like her beliefs. But I think her thing was that I want to be able to talk about it freely. She probably is she's probably very active, maybe politically, mm-hmm. or at least on a social level. Maybe meaning she's probably taking parts in mm-hmm. marches or things like that. And Eric is like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to support you in that.
This reminds me of Clara and Ryan. And the only reason why it does is, well, there's two reasons. One is that he's been wearing his Black Lives Matter t-shirt for a while, a couple times. So there's evidence that he has some viewpoint, but also that I just think that he has things he wants to talk about on a deeper level. Yeah. And he wants his partner to at least be willing to have the conversation. Mm-hmm. And I feel like both Clara and Eric are like, why should I care? What's that got to do with my life?
Yeah, they're both kind of like, I don't really deal with things with like things that are deeper. And I think for people like Virginia and also Ryan, mm-hmm. there are just these deeper level conversations that they want to have, and their partner is just unwilling to go there.
Right.
For many reasons. One, probably that they don't want to get into the argument. Some people just don't want to have the conversation. They're like, I see it as I see it, because they just don't ever want to see it different. And what they realize about themselves probably is that no matter what you say, how many points, how many truths, how many things you lay out, I'm not going to change my opinion because I don't want to. Right. And that's kind of, that's where the country is, that 50, like people are just, you can't change how I feel. And so if you're in a relationship with somebody like that, particularly you're married and we're also just getting to know each other. How do you navigate that space? Because I didn't choose you, mm-hmm. right? I didn't choose for you not to have the same feelings as I feel.
Right.
But I'm stuck with you essentially, or am I?
Yeah.
And so it's tough, because would most of us choose someone who had a completely different, belief system to us? Most people don't.
True. But also, like, we don't have to agree on everything, but can we talk about it? Like, right. I love the fact that you and I can talk about anything. We may not agree on all the points.
That's true.
I think Danielle has made me more feminist in the way that I have thought about things. She has changed my mind on some of my thoughts about parenting. All of these things are things that happen through discussion and conversation. So if you're not even willing to have the conversations, you're not going to evolve and grow as people.
Yeah.
It's not just that you're
stifled,
you and you'll be, exactly.
That's a big part of it too, right? Is that you'll feel stifled.
I can't bring this up
because
at
you
all.
Can't talk about it.
The things that are important to you. That's what I really feel is big with, I didn't realize it with Virginia to this episode, but I know I've seen that with Ryan, is that you can see his face is just like,
yeah, he, in a similar way to Clara, how she kind of like stifles herself sometimes. It seems like she says more in the behind the scenes interviews, like to the camera, than she does directly to Ryan in the moment. But he also does the same thing where you just kind of see him like tighten his mouth a little bit, like
send it somewhere else.
Yeah. And then they don't, at least on camera, they don't ever come back to it. So anyway, we're coming down to the end, but we have a few more points on Eric and Virginia. But if you like what you're watching, please give us a thumbs up. We appreciate it.
Like and subscribe, hit that bell so you get the notifications when we are on again.
Yeah.
One more thing I had about Eric and then about their conversation at the end.
Yeah.
So Eric has this like strong emphasis on how physically attracted he is to Virginia. And he even says, I think, to Dr. Viviana, like that is the foundation. And as long as that's there. everything else can be handled. And because he's so physically attracted to her, he keeps telling himself that I'm good. I'm good. Everything is just great.
When that's obviously not the case. You just need to accept it.
and she says later on, she's like, I know that's not, you're not always going to feel that way.
Right.
You're not always going to be like super attracted to me and ready.
This part is going to wear off.
Right.
And you're going to need more. And we're going to have to deal with these things that make us up outside of just the physical.
Right.
And she, she's a child of divorce. And she talked a lot about that this episode, about how, she's by now, normally she would have been out the door because she just doesn't kind of trust these situations, and that's her family unit. She came from dysfunction.
Right. It affects the way you approach relationships. Absolutely. I know it's affected the way I've approached relationships.
We both are, we're like young adults of divorce, but when you're even if you're like in college and your parents divorced,
it still affects you heavily.
Like because the thing about it is that means that they were doing their fighting and stuff like when you were
hiding it away. You get home and you're like, why is everything so awkward?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Exactly. Yo, that was, have you ever just walked into your home, like as a kid, if you're like a child of divorce or your parents like aren't talking, and it's just like,
it's ice cold. It's ice cold. Motown Investor says, my husband waited for sex until marriage. He didn't even wait 2 seconds for the wedding to be over before he was all over me. Ryan just needs to get it over with. Maybe not. I don't know. I just think that he really, he's trying to build something. I think he said it today. He was like, I'm not just talking about like, okay, are we going to feel good right now? Like, I want to make sure that we're solid and really connected to each other for the next 20, 40, 50 years.
But there might be an episode, like a thing of control to it. Because the thing about it is he's never been in love with anybody before, right? And so when you're that person, you essentially the other person is at the whim and at the whim of your emotions, of you, which means that they're at the whim of you allowing yourself to feel all the feels to move forward in any kind of way with them. And I do think that he is like kind of holding the bag a little bit.
Yeah.
We just haven't figured out exactly why.
I wonder if his last relationship, if it was highly sexual, and there was still no emotion. And so he's like, all right, let me just take that off the table so I can actually get to the emotion, so the sex won't be something that just keeps us together just because it's enjoyable.
I think he's just used to being in like loose relationships, like where like people are, I think he's just like, he's had lots of hookup culture kind of situations. Well, he said
he was in a 2-year relationship, like a long-term relationship before this.
Oh, right. And he wasn't in love with that person.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, we talked about like kind of the church and stuff. And like sometimes like when you're in the church a lot, there are no, like, they kind of put training wheels on like sex and love, right? And it's sort of like this whole thing of, it's like, no. And then once you're married, it's like, boom, like everybody's supposed to be this big freak and you're supposed to do everything but there's like,
right.
But there's no information.
There's no transition.
Like everything is like, no, abstain. But then once you're in there, then nothing in the marriage bed is defiled, and it's just kind of like, like the messaging is off. And a lot of times it's because Christians like are not talking about what they're actually doing, right? They're only talking about what you're supposed to be doing. And so unless you're already just kind of like got your sexual life together, like you're hiding it, right? And so, and you're not sharing what you're actually doing with people, with young people. And so a lot of people who are like very heavily into the church walk into marriage like, what the hell? Like, I don't, or into their first relationship, like I was told everything was bad and now it's supposed to be good or right or pleasurable. Like, and they just don't know. And that is something you have to like get over. Like it's it is an indoctrination process and you have to kind of peel back those layers of like, okay, like, let me see this person as like a full person. And, I try to give Ryan the benefit of the doubt. Like, I don't think he's all good, but I don't think he's all bad. He's maybe somewhere in the middle, but he's controlling a little bit. But then, but is he wrong for like wanting to have a deeper meaning? But then is he just kind of holding it over her for power?
And I think that's unfair, because if it was like, we're not doing anything, I'm not like touching you at all, like sit over there, we can't touch, that would be something different. Yeah. But if you really look at it, they've compromised. He's not ready for sex yet, but they are being sexual. There's intimacy there.
That's true.
So in the same vein, right? Like if he really needs that trust, he said trust a lot. And I think I need to trust you with my innermost feelings and thoughts. And that's where she's not doing the compromise. So I don't think it's controlling. I think I have needs. They haven't been met yet. You believe you have needs. They haven't been met yet. We both expressed those needs. Maybe he hasn't expressed clearly, though, that I need us to talk about this. Like this. Let's unravel this. And I want to know how you actually feel about it. So that's just something they're going to have to figure out.
Yeah.
But back to Eric and Virginia.
Yeah, the last scene with them was really sweet.
It was really sweet. And I think that's like a really good activity. It's like literally a timer. You set a timer for, I think, 30 seconds and you talk, or a minute. I don't know what it was. But you talk about something that's really important to you, and the other person can only listen. That's all I can listen. And I think another aspect after that is after you've listened and after the other person is done, to affirm what you've heard instead of judging it or criticizing or saying this is what happened to me. It's just affirm. Yeah. So I think that's a good activity, and they did that, and it made me think about like what it means to be vulnerable. And actually, I thought about it. It was like, when you're being vulnerable, you need a safe space, and when someone creates a safe space for you, or someone is vulnerable and they let you into a boundary or a wall that they put up, it doesn't mean the wall has disappeared. It's just you're on the inside of it. And so you have to protect it while you're inside. You can't then use that vulnerability or that time of vulnerability and start attacking that person's what was a safe space. They put it in a wall because they wanted it to be safe. If you enter, get all the goods, leave, you've defiled the safe space. It's no longer safe. And that's what happens in relationships, is once we know how to hit people's buttons, we start using those things. But if you really want to care and concern for somebody, is once they open up, you're like, all right, that right there, I got to touch with kid gloves all the time. Or at least until they feel stronger in terms of how they're relating to it. So
Virginia really opened up a lot about just like her past and what makes her scared about marriage, and even about having kids, and why she's so 50-50 on having kids, because of all that she's been through, and she would just never want to put children through that. So she really needs to know for sure that a marriage is going to work, for her to even consider having kids, because we know Eric keeps saying, like, if she doesn't want kids, then I'm done. She's 50-50, but if she says no, I'm done. He works in absolutes, and she's trying to give him more context of like, please don't do that to me, because that actually is going to trigger my abandonment feelings, which will just make me, sort of say no.
You can see it in her eyes every single time he says it, like, I'm done. And he says it jokingly, but I'm jokingly serious. He says it
often. And I don't think she actually calls him enough on that.
I don't think so either. I don't think she calls him on it at all.
Hopefully, Dr. Pepper, Lee, is that you? No, just kidding. Hopefully when Dr. Pepper comes on, because I feel like we haven't seen her all season. She's pretty good at really like kind of calling people to the table on some of the things and habits that they built, and the kind of walls that they have, and the things that they say, or the stories that they tell themselves about the beliefs that they have. She does really good at kind of like peeling back the layers and exposing that and calling them to account. So I'm really excited for the rest of this season. I feel like this episode was a good episode. It was meaty in terms of the other couples.
Progress. There was like good relationship work being done. And you could see like, okay, there's some roots growing. This couple's on the right track. This couple, you can see where they need to do work. It isn't just like they're not having sex. That's weird. It's like there's more to it.
Something to chew on. So again, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to us. You guys can follow us anywhere on the internet at Glowing Up Black Podcast. Find us on Instagram, and our website is glowingupblack.com.
Yes, it is.
So we will see you guys soon. We usually do 2 videos a week. So we'll see you in a couple days. Leave us a comment. Bye, guys. Good night.